The presenting sponsor for OnEducation is Classcraft. The school year is winding down and Classcraft is here to help teachers continue to make their classes relevant and meaningful. During the month of May, all new or existing Classcraft premium users can get their summer subscription for free. That's 14 months for the price of 12. To take advantage of this deal and continue to inspire your students, simply visit classcraft.com/OnEducation.
All the content all the time on education. That's our new motto. Welcome to On Education. I'm Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. It's all VR and AR today on the show. We'll be talking software and devices and what you need to know to bring this awesome technology into your classrooms. Our guests this week are Kevin, Chaja, and Jaime Donally.
Huge episode. Almost too much episode for one episode. In fact, so much episode we'll have to do it in 2 episodes, I think.
We're going to have to split them up.
We actually do have. We are doing Dig It or Ditch It. We are doing it next. We have to record it a little bit later, and we'll be splitting it out because we've got too much content. All the content, all the time, on education. That's our new motto.
Should be a sticker.
It should be a sticker. All the content, all the time. Mm-hmm. I don't know what I just said, but we have great stickers, and that would be another one. Speaking of great things, how about those Raptors, Glen Irvin? How about those Raptors?
I'm happy for you guys. I mean,
you don't sound that happy.
I mean, it's fine. You get Eastern Conference champions. The Eastern Conference wasn't much of a conference this year, but you guys will get to go and play your 4 games against the Golden State Warriors.
Oh, no.
And then you can go back to Canada. And as the North gits destroyed by the Golden State Warriors. I don't even think you can win a game. Right?
You know they're the favorites, right?
They're not the
They are the favorites. Go look at 538. Go look at the ratings.
Mike,
the Raptors are the favorites.
Mike, you're not on the planet there.
They totally are. Okay. And they have home court advantage. Did you know the Raptors have home court advantage?
I did not know they had home court advantage, but
they absolutely have.
When you guys lose 4-0,
they have a better record this year than the Golden State Warriors. They have home court advantage.
I believe you because they play in the Eastern Conference, and that's probably why they have the better record. Yes.
This is going to be a thing now.
I just know the facts, and I guarantee there's no way that they're favored. They probably are actually such long shots that it would actually be a really good wager for you. I don't know if you guys have those types of things as far as in Toronto, if it's legal or not, but if you do, you should put a wager on your Toronto Raptors.
I am now.
and say, I'm gonna come because the odds are going to be great if they do end up pulling it off by a miracle. Because it will be a miracle.
It won't be over by the time we record again next week because the games are on Thursday.
No, they're like spread them out big time.
Sunday. So Game 2 is Sunday, and then Game 3 is Tuesday.
Yeah.
So Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday. So we will be 1 game in. We will be 1 game in.
Only 1 game in. Yeah, they spread it out.
When we talk.
It's going to be at least 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks minimum.
We'll be getting close.
Yeah.
Almost to ISTE time.
Yep, almost. I do remember that it goes right into the mid-June kind of time frame. So no, it's good. You guys are confident, man. I'm happy for you and Drake. You guys look like you were like having a great time. And I was interested though in what do they call that? The Jurassic Playground?
Jurassic Park?
Yes, there you go. The Jurassic Park, which was an area outside of the stadium, maybe?
Right outside of the arena, It's basically the roads.
As you guys would score baskets on the helpless Milwaukee Bucks, who were horrible for a number 2. I think they were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference.
They were the number 1 seed, yeah.
God, that's a bad team. And as you guys beat them, and I could see the people it was like a concert.
Thousands of people.
Yeah, it was like a concert. So, like you said, the country of Canada behind their team. You guys have maybe that force of you guys' support. Maybe you guys will pull it off.
The power of the entire nation behind us.
Yeah, actually, most of us want the Golden State Warriors to lose. So I mean, it's kind of getting an old show there. So if you guys do pull it off, that would be amazing. But I'm thinking a sweep, 4-0.
Oh,
that's my prediction.
Breaking my heart. So we're gonna talk. I'm moving on now. We're going to talk AR and VR all day, basically. Augmented reality and virtual reality. And I think it's important to point out that there's going to be a decent amount of people that may not even know what the hell we're talking about.
Yeah, including me. Which I've admitted previous to the show, and I'm doing a little recording for myself as far for a YouTube thing, and I've just said I don't know a lot about this, but you've pointed me in the direction of some really good information and articles and different things that are being done as far as the classrooms. But I think a lot of people are in the same boat. They know, in a sense, kind of what the two are, but they don't really have a clear idea, like even what they are or what the difference is, and especially how they would go about using it in a classroom for learning.
So let's do the I'm going to give you like the nuts and bolts of the difference between the two. VR is the easiest one to explain. VR, you put a headset on and it's like you're wearing a blindfold. And then when you turn it on, it produces, there are screens that are right in front of your eyes, almost like you're wearing glasses. And those screens produce an image. And because they're so close to your face, to your eyes, it appears, all around you, like you're surrounded. And it creates a sense of you being in a totally different world. And so that's virtual reality. It's kind of
like the movie Ready Player One, right, Mike? Kind of like Ready Player One, virtual reality?
Actually, exactly like Ready Player One. That's like the best example of it, that's easy to visualize. Now, we don't have a lot of those cool kind of tools. There are actually a lot of interesting things happening with haptics, which is like the physical feedback that you get from being in a virtual space. That's haptics.
Okay.
And in Ready Player One, the guy's wearing like a suit that basically has multi-point touch control. Like he can feel people touching him in the virtual environment, and you feel it on your body. So that's what haptics are. And there's some stuff coming out that's kind of interesting related to that, but nothing close to Ready Player One yet. We're not there yet. That's like the dream.
Sure.
But that's what VR is, basically. AR is a little bit different in the sense of when you're wearing an AR headset or glasses, you're seeing the world in front of you. You're literally wearing like glasses in a lot of cases, like the original kind of some of the first things that were popular or popularly known was like the Google Glass, which was literally a set of glasses that you wore, and then it had a little screen that popped out kind of the side. And so the difference is that AR puts things into your view that is virtual or digital, but that you're looking at it you're looking at the real world still. So a popular example of AR is something like Pokemon Go.
Yes.
Where you were looking at your screen, and your screen was basically your camera was passing through the view. So you would look at your screen, you would see like the ground in front of you that's literally on the other side of the camera. And then when you're looking at your screen, a Pokemon would pop up and you would interact with it, but it's obviously not there. So that's basically AR. Now, AR is becoming quite a bit more advanced, especially with Microsoft getting into it quite a bit with a device called HoloLens. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But AR is also, I think in my mind, AR is a little more accessible.
Yeah,
as well. Like there are AR apps.
You can use an iPad or a phone, obviously, to be able to interact with an augmented reality app. So you can use that. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so that makes it more accessible.
There was an app called Erasma that a lot of people in education have heard of. I think it's called HP Reveal now.
Yeah, great name.
If anyone is wondering where Erasma went, it's now called HP Reveal, which is terrible, but that is Erasma. They got bought by HP. there's also a lot of like games and cool apps. So one of the fun examples that I always used to use with AR was the star charts. So where you could use your phone to look up into the sky, and it would augment reality. It would show like information about the stars that you're looking at through your camera
Yep.
on your
Really
phone.
cool.
And you could track, for example, when we went camping with the Cubs, with scouts, we would look for where the ISS is and kind of track it so that we could see when it was going to be flying overhead. Because you could actually look down into the ground, and if the International Space Station was like on the other side of the planet, you could actually see that it was on the other side of the planet because it was augmented. It was an augmented reality on your phone.
That's a cool app. I really enjoy that one. Yep.
Yeah, so there's lots of cool stuff like that. I guess one of the interesting conversations we kind of had before we went on the air was how we teach with these, because there are some slight differences, and you had a couple thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I mean, when Erasmus was around, and that has been now quite a few years, that it first came out, there was a lot of amazing uses for it. I thought it just seemed like, oh, okay, this is practical. A lot of us were in the iPad. We all had one-to-one iPads at the beginning of that kind of movement, probably about 6 or 7 or 8 years ago. I want to say it seemed like, my goodness, this you could definitely do a lot with this. And there was some connections too to education, kind of like some content that you could embed on an actual object and then embed content. There was also the ability for students to create basically layers of augmented reality content on top of a physical drawing or whatever it actually might be, a symbol, and then they could actually embed that content too and create it and embed it. So it seemed to have a lot of connections specifically with that app. But like you just mentioned, there's a ton of different apps that are augmented reality apps. I remember going to all kinds of sessions at different conferences that had to do with Pokemon Go, for example, and just the concept of augmented reality and being able to use that for something else beyond that. We used to play this game called Ingress. Still, people are still playing that game.
Yeah, it's still out. They've actually redone it recently.
Yep. So Ingress basically was before Pokemon Go, and it has a large community that play it. But again, it's a physical space kind of thing, and people are like, okay, what can we do with this kind of, these elements and be able to put it together? And then Paul Dervasi, he's mentioned to us where he's used augmented reality for all kinds of different things to be able to basically connect the city of Toronto or the specific landmarks to learning that the kids are doing, plus reverse that, and the students are actually creating for other students or other people in the public. So you have a dynamic audience out there, or a real audience, sorry, that you can go ahead and create content for, which I love all that. The one that was interesting to me though, and I was just talking to you about it, is like, and I don't know enough about it, is like virtual reality. So, what is it besides consumption? What is it besides like, you're immersed in a thing? And I've seen a couple of things, like the only couple of things that I've seen that have to do with creation, like there's this painting app. I think Jaime Donally mentions it later in her interview.
Tilt brush,
Tilt brush, and you can actually create something within it. I know there's a potential inside of there, but I still don't know the connection. So I think a lot of people are feeling like that. Like, why would we go out and spend all this money? And actually, maybe you shouldn't. You should investigate, research, figure out what your goals are, and then see if that's the right tool. Like as Jaime will say later too, which is a really good point.
100%. And I'll tell you, you don't appreciate how amazing Tilt Brush is until you use it. I think that's one of the things, that's a common theme with VR in particular, is that it's really hard to see how amazing it is until you've done it. But then once you've played VR, most people's minds are just completely blown by how amazing modern, top tier VR is. Like, if you put on an HTC Vive or an Oculus Rift, or I guess the Vive Pro or the Oculus Quest, there's an amazing difference between that and something like a mobile VR. I'll admit that other than Tilt Brush, I don't have a lot of good answers for you as far as creation goes, or at least creation inside of VR. Other than, I mean, you can use Minecraft in VR, and it does add a really interesting element to the building process when you are, in first person mode inside the world of Minecraft. It changes some of your perspective a little bit on what you're building and how you're building, as far as, building to scale and stuff like that. There might be some interesting conversations to have there. But there's definitely also there are a lot of pretty interesting consumption tools, though. Places for you to learn. I actually have a VR app of the Titanic. That is a very historically replicated model of the Titanic, and then it actually replicates, the Titanic underwater, sinking, and as it's sinking, and you can watch the whole thing kind of play out, and you get, I'll tell you, I mean, if you're looking for like a way to really have a strong sense of understanding of how something happened, VR puts you right in that world and gives you a sense like you've never had before of being there in that moment. I mean, there are a lot of interesting museum tours that you can do in VR as well. Like, I don't know if I'll ever get a chance to go to the Louvre, myself, but I can go in VR almost anytime I want. And depending on your ability to suspend, disbelief and stuff like that, you can really get a strong sense of what it's like to be there and see, things like the Mona Lisa almost virtually firsthand, right?
Totally get that. And I think that that's where a lot of the use is right now. I think we're like right at that cusp of, and it's just I think all about the developers. Like, once they find the need and the niche and the demand, that people are like, hey, we need something where kids can actually do this. That's where they're going to go to. And I think we're just right at that cusp of like in between, just basically experiencing things, and then Ready Player One. We're so, right at that tilt of basically getting there, because I think experiencing content could be really, really next level if taken. Just some pieces are missing, and once those pieces are there, my goodness, it will make for a very, very immersive, awesome experience that, kids. I could imagine like a kid using a Spanish app where you're actually interacting and speaking with other Spanish speakers, but really in a virtual environment. So it really feels like, and they understand and kind of are interacting with you depending upon what you actually say. There's some really cool stuff that could be possible.
I agree. We're on the cusp of like a whole new wave of things, especially with the devices becoming so advanced. We've seen some promos at a conference, at a press event Apple did a couple of months ago. They revealed a Lego AR application, and now there's a Minecraft application in AR that's coming, Minecraft Earth. And unfortunately, we were hoping to learn a little bit more about it. I know we kind of talked about it a little bit last week. But there's not really a whole lot out about it. And I guess one of the interesting things that we're waiting to find out about this Minecraft Earth is, so obviously you'll have structures that will appear in front of you, that look like Minecraft structures. But I guess we're still curious about how you build them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it says you're going to build creations with friends and place them in the real world at life size, it says. So that's super interesting. The commercial is also interesting in that it shows you the different mobs, basically the critters, if you want to think of them that way, that appear inside of Minecraft, along with some new ones that will be there. So there's that kind of thing. I just wonder, how did they... what's bringing this all together? Because you need something, to me, I need something more to see, like, okay, why am I going to go out there and do this stuff? It has to be compelling in game mode, the game play. And like we've talked about off air too, is how is that building, the collaborative building, and do you get to decide what you create, or is it already kind of canned buildings, or how is that going to actually work? And the materials that you collect, how is that part works. So we're really excited about it, and you can sign up to be on their beta. And I think sometime this summer they're gonna be able to go ahead and have some people actually allow them to go ahead and be on the beta, and then maybe by fall it'll actually be fully open. That would be super interesting. So I love the concept of augmented reality in this kind of case, and same thing with Pokemon and any of these kinds of things, because you physically go outside. It's just in the commercial even shows it, and you're doing things outside. I thought that Pokemon did an amazing job at bringing people outside and putting them in places that they had never even looked at in their communities. So in other words, we just walked by statues and amazing things that our own communities have built and created, parks and whatever, but we just kind of take it for granted is a bit what it is. And now we re-experience those things through this kind of augmented reality lens. That is fantastic. And if Minecraft does that too, Minecraft Earth, that's a whole new level for me. I love that kind of stuff when we actually get outside and interact with the communities around us.
100%. There's a lot going on, and it's really exciting. When we come back, there are a ton of devices out there. If you don't live in this world, I could see how you could get lost in it all. When we come back, we'll run down all the best gear and give you the ins and outs. Stay tuned.
Do you have plans to attend the ISTE conference this summer? Come one day early and participate in the Best Hidden Gem conference in the United States. Badge Summit 2019 will take place on the Temple University campus in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on June 22nd. There will be lots of wicked smart educators to collaborate with on topics such as digital badges, credentials, gamification, and more. To learn more about Badge Summit, simply visit bit.ly/Badge Summit.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Listen, there are tons of devices out there, and we could spend all day going through them all. But we did want to not leave you without getting at least an understanding of what's out there and what's available, because they do range.
Big time.
Right, Glenn? From like super expensive to
cheapy.
You can buy something at a garage sale or free.
Exactly.
And they're everywhere, all over the place. And some of these might be right for you. Some of these you can use in the classroom, and I think you should. And some of them are, for big homes with lots of room in your basement, and you have $3,000 to dump on it. So, I mean, they go all over the map. So basically, I want to divide up the devices into 3 categories for VR. There's mobile VR, there's console VR, and then there's PC VR. And these go all over the map. So mobile VR is probably the most common, the most popular, the thing that, you've seen it in retail and it's pretty accessible. Things like the Google Cardboard, which, go to a conference at Connect, actually, they were giving away cardboard holders for VR. And then there's things like the Oculus Go, which, it's $200, but it's a standalone mobile VR headset, which is, and it looks really
reasonable.
Nice. Super comfortable, tons of fun. And then its predecessor, or its, related, is like the Samsung Galaxy VR. The only drawback to the Samsung Galaxy VR is obviously that you had to put a Samsung Galaxy phone inside of it.
Okay.
So it wasn't compatible with iPhones. So there's mobile VR is also, for better or for worse, where a lot of the big development is actually happening. I think it's because people can buy it and it's more affordable. So there's actually a lot more, and generally speaking, they're all attached to it's all built into, what you're using on your phone, and everyone has phones. So everyone potentially has an AR VR device already.
Yes.
Right.
So Mike, just so that we're clear too, these mobile VR things probably vary in the quality, right?
Yeah.
But Google Cardboard, I thought it was okay. I think it's okay, but it wasn't anything where I was like, oh my goodness, let's go buy the whole kit, which people were.
Sure.
There were some people that were like that or still continue to be like that and did go buy those kits, from Best Buy or whatever it might be, and bought a class set, got the phones that were really not phones, but they were just specifically for this purpose, and then ran a whole system with that, which all the more power to you, because there's all kinds of different experiences out there that are for free. And then the Google Cardboard is really accessible also too, because it's the price point is there.
Right.
But I think because people experience that, they think virtual reality is similar to that. But I think what you're trying to say is these next ones that you're about to say are that much better, right? That much more immersive. Okay.
Even within the mobile VR world, there is quality, substantial quality. Like the difference between Google Cardboard and Oculus Go is substantial.
Okay. That's what I figured.
A huge difference between the two. And then you have console VR, and there's only really one player in this right now. There is a Sony PlayStation VR set. It's the only one that ever gave me any sort of motion sickness. and maybe that's because I had a Rift at the time, and I was so used to like super high quality top end VR that I used this, and I could tell there was motion blur. So that's when you hear about motion sickness, and this is something we should probably talk about just a little, it's mostly related to motion blur, because you're not actually looking at real life, right? You're looking at a video screen.
Yes.
You're looking at something as if it was on a screen. It's just the screen is really close to your eyes, and that's giving you an optical illusion like you're surrounded by it.
So if it's fuzzy, basically it gives you that blur that actually could potentially make you dizzy. You're saying okay, because it confuses your brain.
Headaches, or that's what gives you the headaches or the dizziness, or some people can get really sick. I know people that don't react to this well at all, and have been laid out for days because of how sick they got. It's like seasickness almost.
Yeah,
right.
No, makes sense.
So PlayStation VR is the only thing that ever did that to me, and I don't know if it was because it just wasn't fitting right, or wasn't adjusted properly, or calibrated, or whatever. But I know that Nintendo Labo has recently released a VR set.
Yeah.
And so it's using the Switch screen, and it's putting the Switch screen literally right in front of your face, in a cardboard set, because that's all Labo is. Labo's cardboard. Basically the cardboard. And it's cheap though. It's like $75 US. So, I mean, a pretty interesting, inexpensive way to experience VR. I don't know of its quality.
Yep.
And then, of course, there are the super high end,
the big ticket items.
The big ticket items. So I had an Oculus Rift. I actually recently got rid of it when I quit teaching and had to work from an office. I had to renovate my office, and my office is where I did VR because I had tons of space, and now I have no space. So there's Oculus Rift, which is kind of the first generation, and there was what's called the Vive, which is made by HTC and kind of co-developed by Valve, the video game company. And then there's the newest one, which is called the Oculus Quest. So these are PC or standalone VR. The Oculus Quest is allegedly PC quality, so that's why we kind of put it in this category. But the prices are quite a bit higher. So an Oculus Rift is in the $400 to $500 range now.
Okay.
And the Vive is around the same.
Okay.
But now there's a Vive Pro, and the Vive Pro is quite a bit more. It's pushing $800 US. And the Oculus Quest is about $400 US. So they kind of range all over the place. One of the things that you'll hear from Kevin when he joins us in a bit is talking about the necessity to have a computer. It's the X factor in this that a lot of people don't consider. For the Rift and the Vive and the Vive Pro, you have to have a decent computer. In fact, not just a decent computer, you have to have a good computer. Mm-hmm. So we're talking at least probably $1,200 to $1,600 or $1,700 just for the PC.
Wow. Yeah. You need that
and
first.
Then you're still 100%. And then you're still buying a VR headset of whatever flavor that you choose to buy or could potentially afford. The other X factor with these PC VRs is that you require space, and not a small amount of space. The Vive recommends, I believe, a 10-foot square space, which is a lot. That's huge amounts of space. I could be wrong on that exact number, but I know the Vive in particular stresses that it would like a lot of space. Now, for my Rift, I was probably working in I'm going to say a 5x5 space. And the reason why I got rid of it is because that 5x5 space turned into I'm looking around right now, about a 3x3 space. And I just didn't think I could make it work in that space. Yeah. So I got rid of it. But they definitely require space because they track your motion. And that's one of the cool things about it, right?
Yes. So
is that
it's actually less expensive than I thought they were going to be. I thought we were talking in the thousands and thousands. But because some of them require the PC,
high-end PCs,
then that is a significant factor then too. So the Oculus Quest does not require the PC.
No.
Okay, so that's a big game changer, and that's the reason why that's why people are talking about it, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal. And I mean, of all of the things that is a game changer, because it's a game changer in a number of ways, being tetherless, being standalone is absolutely huge. But it also, it doesn't require cords.
Yes,
right.
That's a big deal.
So one of the huge limitations of the Vive and the Rift was that you always had this wire coming out of the back of your head, almost like the Matrix, right? So if you remember the Matrix, they had this plug that was in like the back of their whatever. It was almost like that, and it felt like that. You could feel the cord. It was what really took the immersion out of it. Was the fact that you always had to be conscious of where the cord was. Yeah, 100%. So having no cord is a huge thing. Even though it's not tied to a PC, the resolution is amazing. It's 1440 by 1600, which is the exact same resolution as the Vive Pro. So that makes it that's why we put it in that same category, because it's PC quality.
Yeah, high ticket, but has a lot of advantages. So definitely something we should be taking a look at. So
for $400, like, I mean, you can get into some pretty fun stuff, man. Like, I mean, it's not there are in my mind cool educational applications, and again, I think we're just scratching the surface of this. But even just as an entertainment device, when you think about how much a PlayStation costs or an Xbox costs or a Switch costs, which is right around the same amount of money as this Oculus Quest, I can see some people picking this up and using it as an entertainment device, which is also, what it is.
For sure. So these are the virtual reality ones, right?
Now there's augmented reality, and there's not a lot. Yeah, there's not a lot of like devices for AR other than your phone. I mean, I think that the thing that a lot of people would point out, and Apple will point this out every day, is that your iPhone is an AR device. Yes. They are pushing AR hard. They have been pushing AR hard for a long time, 6, 7, 8 years, like you said. The reason why a lot of people in education know about Erasma is because Apple was demoing Erasma on iPads.
Yes.
It's like that's where most people's first interactions with AR came from in the education space, is because Apple was saying, hey, look at the things you can do on an iPad in AR. So there's no coincidence that AR is everywhere, even if you don't realize it, because your phone is an AR device. Now, that being said, Microsoft made what's called the HoloLens. It looks a lot like a VR headset. It's got a big old, eye thing that goes over your face, but you can sort of see through it, and it augments, reality. It puts things in your field of vision. It's very expensive, and it's not for public consumption yet. I don't think it's not like something you can buy at retail. You still, I believe, have to be like a developer or ask for like a developer version of it to get one. And I believe you have to even like queue up for it. Like there's like a lottery
to
get access to it. Yeah.
So it's still basically, they're still working on whatever this is going to be. Again, just like in the virtual reality space, like still working on for public consumption, the model that everybody will then have access to.
And it's a ton of money. It's like $1,700
wow.
US.
If you
just for
if
the
you can even get
HoloLens,
it.
and you still need and you still need a computer.
Wow. Yeah, that's super
so
expensive.
It's not tetherless. It's wired to your device, to your PC, and it's not cheap. So that's that. But you're going to hear us talk a little bit more in the next segment with Jamie and Kevin about Merge Cube, and it's worth mentioning it here because of a couple of cool things. First is that it's getting a lot of traction at schools. It's super easy to get, and it's incredibly cheap. In some cases, you've seen people giving them away for free. There's places like Walmart that have sold them for $1, and I believe I got mine for $10 cheap.
Yep.
And Merge Cube is a foam cube. It's about 4-5 inches square in a cube, and it's got a pattern on every side of the cube that acts as a trigger, like if you remember what Erasma did, where something had to trigger the AR. Well, the patterns on the Merge Cube trigger augmented reality on top of that side of the cube. And so what's cool about a cube, obviously, is that you can turn it around, right? And as you turn it around, each of the patterns is being revealed on your phone in the Merge app or whatever app you're using related to Merge Cube. And so each trigger triggers a different AR, thing on it. So you have a lot of really interesting applications, like Moment, which is Kevin's application, where on each side of the cube is a person that's demonstrating a different emotion. So you turn it one way and you're seeing someone angry, and then you turn it another way and you're seeing someone happy, and you turn it another way and you're seeing someone bored. And you're doing that because the triggers trigger different images, because the patterns on the cube are different. So Merge Cube is super easy to get, super easy to use.
And there's a lot of free apps for it too, right?
Tons of free apps for it. Moment, Kevin's app is free.
Yep.
And there are lots of other apps as well. So Merge Cube is, if you're just looking for a really easy way to kind of see what this is all about, Merge Cube is where it's at. Go get a Merge Cube and have some fun. If you're looking for a super easy way to get into VR, go grab a Google Cardboard or some other piece like that. You can buy, similarly plastic pieces as well. But $199 for the Oculus Go isn't super expensive related to other mobile or entertainment kind of products. And again, Oculus Quest at $399 is again not as expensive as a lot of people thought it would be, and pretty compelling. Let me tell you, if you're looking for a really top tier VR set for relative to the other ones, not a top tier price.
Definitely going to get the Cube.
Yes, absolutely. I hope that was helpful. That's a lot of devices and a decent rundown on what's out there. When we come back, we'll be joined by Jaime Donally and Kevin Chaja to talk more AR and VR, so stay with us. All right, welcome back to the pod, everyone. Kevin Chaja is an entrepreneur and developer from California. He has an absolutely amazing background in the entertainment industry, and he's the developer of the Moment AR app for Merge Cube. Moment AR is an augmented reality application that helps high-need students identify and communicate their emotions. Jaime Donally is also with us, and she is an educator, speaker, consultant, and author, all of the good things. She's generally considered the go-to expert on AR, VR, and mixed reality in education, and they both join us together today for the podcast. Welcome, Jaime and Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's talk first about what leads you to us today. And we'll start with Kevin. You've worked mostly in the entertainment and software development industry, but you're on an education podcast and are being seen in those circles quite a bit more. Maybe share a bit about your background, but also lead us towards what brings you into the education space as well.
I would absolutely love to. One, thank you for having us here. You all look fantastic. No one else can see you guys, but everyone looks absolutely fantastic for a Sunday. But yeah, so the answer I give is very simple answer is that I shouldn't be in this space at all. Like I said, I'm in the entertainment industry, post-production would have nothing to do with education, but my wife is actually a school psychologist for the Burbank Unified District. And it came very, very, very simple where my job at Sony at the time was to evaluate products to come in, and I give them into, I value in like the marketing, sales, all these different areas. So they bring me in and I answer all the tech stuff. And so this company called Merge VR came in and I checked them out and I'm like, man, I thought it was really cool, the Merge Cube. I'm like, that's genius. AR was just about to explode. But what the different about them is they had an actual tactile physical object you hold and things pop out of it. And so when I got home, I tried to make something for post-production. I was thinking you get a whole bunch of cubes and you just chuck them at the wall or something like that. And then you take a picture of it and it could track them and then give you all this tracking info. And now they have AR apps that do that, like the measuring tape, whatever. And it didn't work well because the merge cubes have like a 2 foot, maybe 1 foot draw distance before you lose tracking of it. And before I was going to give up on the project, my wife next to me was doing at-home work and she was just venting out loud. They're like, man, I wish I had something, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, and I did what every husband should do, which is listen to your wife. And I said, oh, like, hey, I think I have something here. Check this out. And the first thing she did was she got the Merge Cube and she chucked it at the wall. I'm like, what the heck are you doing? I'm like, you don't like it? And she goes, no, I want to see if a kid can hurt another kid with it. And I'm like, oh, which actually the first renditions of the Merge Cube, they're a lot firmer. They're actually a lot harder. It was like a stale Nerf ball. Sure. And the ones that came out in the market right now, they're very plushy. You can like squeeze them. Yeah. And I'm like, hey, let me build something on it. What are you missing? She goes, I want something to do with emotions. And I'm like, oh, so what do you mean? Like put an emotion on each side? And we literally were doing like development right there. She goes, yeah, put a development. I'm like, well, there's 6 sides, and you're missing one because you kind of did like the inside out thing of like anger, sadness, fear, disgust, and then of course there's I think we're missing one more. But the biggest thing is she said was and fear, and then the last one was she goes, oh, I want boredom. And I'm like, oh, cool, I'll put like boredom in there. And then that's just like I started building the app right there.
That's amazing. I love that.
I gave you like a whole rant instead of like one answer, but I thought that was the most interesting part because like when I do demos now, that's the biggest thing when I tell people I'm like, like especially educators and in special education, like anyone can make anything. But when I say, oh, I built this with my wife who was a school psychologist and she helped create this, 50% of the questions, if not 60%, go out the window because they're like, oh man, one of us created it. Cool. So
yeah, exactly.
To me, that's one of the coolest parts.
So Jamie, your background is quite a bit clear as far as how you relate to this, but I'm interested in how you went from a math teacher to a tech coach, and then to being basically the go-to AR, VR guru. How about giving us a little journey through your path that brings you to us talking about AR, VR today?
Well, the only reason why I taught math is it was the only subject I actually got in school. Everything just really made sense. I didn't have to memorize anything. It was something that just connected for me. I will say that being an educator has never been about math. It's never been about teacher technology. It's never been about AR, VR. I feel like it's always been about relational, connections that I've had opportunities to have. So really being able to build those relationships and being able to make impacts in people's lives and them impact my own. Started off with students. I actually started coaching first when my husband was going to grad school.
Interesting. Yeah.
I had played, I played sports in high school and in college. And so having played those sports and then went out afterwards and having little ones, it was like, okay, well, I can coach while he's back at home from school. And then, so we kind of made that work. And I started coaching some club teams and various sports and schools. And at one point it was like, you know what, I really want to teach. Like, this would be really cool. So my first year teaching, I mean, I dressed up as a clown. I got to go to school. I mean, it was like, I can't believe I get to get paid and do this every day. Like, this is wild. This is awesome. So right up my alley. It's like I found something that was inside of me that was never there. Not because of math, but because of teaching, right? Just being able to make those connections with kids. And then later on, I mean, I always use technology. I think that was always something driven inside of me, like, oh, okay, how can I do this? And as I kind of progressed and started teaching teachers that I was working with, like, hey, you can implement this or you can implement that. In my local school district, there was a position that was open, and I applied, did not get it, and ended up then teaching RTI classes, so response to intervention, math. And these are kids at middle school that have been told that they're failures all their lives and they are never going to be good at math. And I got to go in there with like no hands, in my curriculum, nobody telling me what I have to do for lesson plans. And I got to go wild. And it was so much fun. And we had Tech Tuesday, and I always did technology integration and stuff. They always had stuff going on with technology. And then 2 years after that, they came back and said, hey, we'd like for you to apply for this again.
Awesome.
And I was in that district, and it was I grew so much in those years. And so then I was like, great. I applied and got the job. And then from there, I went to a training in my local region area here in Texas. And there was somebody showing augmented reality. And I remember she was showing Erasmus, and I was just like, hold on, wait, what what? Like, I remember I heard nothing after she showed me that app one time. I'm literally in her session as she's up there speaking, and I'm like making all these auras and all this, and I'm just like, everything comes to life. I mean, the day after, I'm training all the teachers in my schools, like, you're going to be doing this. This is amazing. So I just went kind of crazy with that. And I think that was the start. Now, later on, VR was something, I think for AR and VR, there was very little connection to education. And for me, while I'm really enthusiastic about what's coming out and this great technology, my passion lies in education. How can this transform our classrooms? So I feel like when you say guru, I don't think that's it at all. I think I've been so passionate about this topic for so long. And I've seen the longevity of like where it was really getting going, where there was a lot of fails, where it's now, where we're headed. And so in that process of kind of just being on the journey with other educators as well, I think ultimately it's kind of like just having the background knowledge as to you don't want to do that, or, ooh, that would be really cool. So I think the collaboration to me is really cool that people value that with me.
So Jaime, as a tech coach, the first kind of questions, and even as a teacher, we ask is, why should we use this? Why AR and VR? So what is it about these new technologies that is important? And then we're faced with a massive amount of choice in terms of technology and the tools that we end up purchasing for our classrooms and for our students. So what's the case for learning this and bringing it to our classrooms?
Yeah, definitely. So I just had a keynote last week on We're Off to See the Future, and everything's thematic, of course, with Wizard of Oz.
Nice.
Kind of identify where the educators are and how we can all kind of like relate to that cowardly lion, or we can relate to Dorothy who's optimistic and jumps in head first. And I think we have a variety of different educators out there, but ultimately what it all really came down to was like our heart, where this technology comes into play is identifying what our students need. And oftentimes we jump into things because of the wow, which is really true. We're in the classroom of awe. And I think that's cool, but we have to get past that. We really have to see that there's so much more to this than just the awe. And when we're really identifying what our students need and where their struggles are, sometimes this technology is all there really is today that can bridge those gaps for them to learn. And I know having 3 children that are very different, they all learn really differently, and they all have just really very different personalities. There's different times that I have to implement certain things in order to help support them in their learning. But even in that, I can't say it's always AR, VR. Like that's one of our tools. So my mission in sharing this is sharing one of the resources out there, a type of resource out there available to you. Of course, there's many, but I don't think I'm an advocate for always bringing in AR, VR. I think that there's times that they need to learn differently, and we really need to target that. But I don't want you to only be limited to the other options
Sure.
and not be aware of what AR, VR can do.
So one of the questions that I'm sure our audience members would immediately ask is, what about the cost? Especially we're talking about VR items. There's a really high cost of the devices, and Mike actually and I talk about this throughout the episode. Can you talk to us about like the cost of these devices, and how do you find that districts end up affording them to be able to purchase them into their classrooms or their districts themselves?
I can start. Kevin can follow up. I'm an advocate of practical. So I don't think it's always practical to bring in these high-end VR devices. I think that it's leading the way, and it's giving us the concepts to anticipate and expect for our technologies in our classroom. But I don't think that it's something that every classroom should have. I mean, when we're talking about all the wires and cords, we talk about the training, we talk about the devices that have to be connected, we talk about the space limitations, we talk about this being sanitized, and all of those factors that bring in some of the things that we're talking about right now. Forget the cost. Mm-hmm. Districts are willing to pay the cost. But do they realize what they're bringing in and all the impractical ways of bringing in this kind of technology into the classroom? So I think I'm always an advocate of what do we already have in our classroom. And then as tools like the Quest just came out this week, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But as these tools are coming out and how they fit in our classroom, it doesn't mean every classroom, but it does mean that there is ways to implement something like this. So I think instead of looking at the cost so much, because unfortunately I've seen districts pay an enormous amount of money for these kits, for these sets, and then they have a huge headache. People's jobs no longer are what they are. They're managers of calendars and devices and transportation. And I think that's the bigger issue to me. Don't go out and try to find grant money. Really identify what your goals are, what you want to accomplish with this technology, and then identify what device will suit this best. And then oftentimes it's usually using the stuff you already have in your classroom.
Well, and Kev, Merge Cube is a game changer, right? I mean, it's so inexpensive. I can see why you gravitated towards developing on that in the first place.
Yeah, and Jamie hit it nail on the spot, because when I created Moment and it skyrocketed from there, we could literally talk hours on it. I just did a conference up in Oregon for tech disabled kids in education, and I talked for, I think it was supposed to be an hour, and I talked for an hour and a half, luckily there's nothing after me, about what the possibilities are, which is insane. You give this power to education, and educators in their minds just go, I could use this, and this. But one of the biggest things I saw, no matter what, was it just works off your phone, and VR, especially, I have good friends in Vive, and they're like, hey, Kevin, can you make something enterprise level for us in Vive? I'm like, I could, but I'm like, your headset, I mean, the Vive Pro that I got yesterday, I'm like, with the support and everything, that's like $1,700. I'm like, that alone, like Jamie right away, just like, nope, not going to happen, because it's true, because you have to get a proper PC for it, a headset. Now you're looking at $2,000 to $3,000. On top of that, you need the space for it. And right away with a Merge Cube, I mean, for the people lucky to go at Walmart for $1, I'm like, that's all you need. And most apps, like my app, is free. So it's a logistics, but it's practical. It's just like, okay, do I get this for a Merge Cube for $1 or $15 now, and get some free apps, or do I have to buy this $3,000 solution? You don't even think about the $3,000 solution because it's that much. And plus, on top of that, I don't expect my wife or any user to be like a tech person to get things running. Where that's so what's true. The Merge Cube is so amazing. You just point the phone at the cube, it works. Very simple.
So this technology has the ability, and we've started to touch on it, the ability to be transformative in a way that not many other technologies can boast. I always tell people you have to try VR to totally get it, but once you do, it blows your mind. I reacted to Erasmus the exact same way Jamie did, and that's actually my first entry to AR was through Erasmus. So I understand her reaction completely. The earth is constantly moving around AR and VR, and we're seeing tons of awesome things like Moment, for example. Kev, you must hear some amazing stories of people using it and it being helpful and groundbreaking. Maybe share a couple stories of things you've heard about people using Moment.
I think the biggest one was the kind of like research element outside of our little umbrella, which is us here in LA and our Burbank, Pasadena, Glendale, other like districts, was Merge contacted me and said, hey, can you, we're going to do another video. You want to come out? I'm like, yeah, sure. We're at, plus like, I'm excited to go to San Antonio. They have good food there, especially at the Riverwalk. And then, they're like, oh, we're going to go to this place called Morgan's Wonderland. And actually that's one of their premiere videos they did, where they have, it's a special needs, like theme park, but they have an academic part as well. And they're like, yeah, we want you to talk to some of the teachers there. And I'm like, we'd love to. Plus my wife was really excited too to see other teachers use it where we didn't instruct them or they didn't watch a video. They're just like, we get it. And the video was amazing because instantly they said, this helped us with nonverbal communication. And I'm like, yes, that is exactly what we're looking for. And that video was like prime. When I tell people like a good example of that, I'm like, that's the perfect one because they got it right away and they use it in a practical manner and it got results. And that's what we're going for. So when I heard of those results instantly, I'm like, this is all worth it. What else can I do type of thing?
So Jaime, I'm sure you're seeing the exact same types of shifts inside of education that have to do with augmented reality or virtual reality. What's a great example of how this is being used at schools that has really blown your mind?
I think that it varies. It varies by grade level. It varies by subject level. I think that, just off the top of my head, I mean, I have a story that's not necessarily in a classroom per se, but at home. And my daughter is dyslexic, my youngest daughter. And I have no idea how to support her. So there's a lot of research to be done on that side for me. Mm-hmm. So she was struggling with spelling words bad. And I would get frustrated. She'd get frustrated. And I would just yell, pay attention. Why are you not doing this? And then I got a chance to really witness her explore an app that was called Catchy Words AR. It is called Catchy Words AR. And I really did not give it much credit. I actually thought, this app is kind of like Hangman in the air. Great. Why do we need that in AR, right? Yes. So I shared it, but it wasn't like I was really passionate about it. But then I actually got to see her use it. And I had her hop on these words that she could not get. I mean, I had her write it out. I had her speak it out, and we were just kind of doing everything that we've been told to do all along. This will help you memorize. And she played Catchy Words AR, and the letters just kind of, you pop this bubble with your device, and the letters just spray out all around you. So you have to go and capture them all around. You're walking around with your phone and you're grabbing it with your phone, and then you have to place it in the correct order in these boxes to spell out this word. So I typed in the word she was struggling with. She went down. It took her forever. I mean, she could not do it. She's sitting there walking around, and I'm sitting there just biting off my nails, more frustrated than when I gave it to her. This is a bad idea, And so I'm just like sitting there, just like, oh gosh, will you just hurry? I'm not saying that, but in my mind, I'm thinking it. Finally, after she's, walking around, she'd grab a letter, and then she'd look at that letter and turn around, and then she'd place it in the box, and it would be in the wrong spots, and then she'd have to go take it out and then put it in the right. Oh, that's the wrong box too. Oh, okay, that one's right. So she's literally going through and putting this in. It took a good 20 minutes. And so finally, when it was over, it celebrates with you. Like there's kind of like these fireworks, streamers. That come out. Yeah. And I asked her how to spell that word, and she immediately told me. And I was like, okay. Hey. I asked her an hour later, and she told me. And then the next day, I asked her, and she told me. She's never forgotten how to spell that word. That was long-term memory. And I think there's a couple things that factors about that. One is AR, whether they accidentally ran into this or they really intended this. It seemed like it was on accident, but they got the kids physically up and moving. And I think that's huge with education.
Really good point.
The connection. But then two is because she's dyslexic, it really challenged her to have to look at those letters through different angles. And so if your brain has to work hard for content, then it will retain it because it doesn't have to work that hard again. So the fact that she was struggling was actually a positive for that long-term memory. So I think that there were some factors involved for her specifically. And I think for many of our kids that we just need to identify what works for our students. And I think there's going to be a lot of stories to be told as this continues to go. And I hear stories all the time. It's really inspiring to see how this has even inspired kids to want to go out and use this in their fields, in their industries, and their future jobs.
It's amazing.
Love it.
it's funny. This episode was scheduled to be recorded a couple weeks ago, and we kind of punted it because of Mother's Day and whatnot. And I think it actually was meant to be because both of you have just gotten new stuff, new toys, and it couldn't have worked out better. Oculus Quest just came out, and Jamie, you got one, and this is like the newest prime kind of Oculus device. Can you talk a bit about your experiences with it so far? Let's do like a little mini review. How's the hardware? What's the UI like? I'm actually curious because I have a Rift. Is the home space inside of it the same, like the landing place? And how have your experiences been inside various applications? How do you feel about it?
I love it. I am sharing it to everybody. I actually had it for my family. My son graduated from high school yesterday. And so for his graduation party, brought out the Quest, and everybody's playing Vader Immortal, which I don't blame them. And so that's the first one I downloaded myself. And then I actually got serious about buying this for education, and then went and started downloading other apps like Tilt Brush. But, I think that they're just like the Go. We're going to see this, the apps really start to pick up as it gets going. I heard Oculus was super picky about what they selected for the Quest, and they were really trying to make sure it was targeted what was right for that particular device. So you'll see some things that were available on the Rift that are also available on the Quest, and some things that couldn't be available on the Go that are now available on the Quest, which is really exciting. And then I talked to companies that are backloading their content and selling the Quest and the Go, and they're selling the devices, and they're not actually, since they're not getting qualified or accepted into the actual stores, they're actually loading them because there's a huge quantity of content. So I think that there's some great potential there. I definitely think it's never been intended for education. We're all trying to make it fit. But I do think if I were to choose the difference between bringing a Rift in the classroom that has all the wires and computer and training, I would never do that. I mean, there's going to be very specific targeted groups that would apply to. But I love it. I think that a couple of things that I noticed, I got sick a lot with the Go. So when I've had to write reviews and write-ups on articles for it, I'll go in and do some snapshots and stuff, and I noticed that I would get sick. And I don't get like car sick very easily. But I've never felt that with the Quest. So I know that the quality, they've kind of essentially put the resolution into each lens. And so the view is I think, tracks better. I think the movement helps instead of just sitting there and looking, getting up, physically walking. I think our brains handle that a lot better. I do want to just point out that it's ages 13 and up. So if you're looking at secondary level, that's great. But if you're looking at elementary, I think that there's other options you need to consider.
I love that there's no cords. I think it's a game changer as someone that has a Rift, so experiences. And I've brought my Rift to school, which, is an elementary school. It's dangerous. I mean, people are like, I can't believe you actually did this. But I'm like, it's worth it. I mean, the kids just lose their minds. But I can see Quest being just out of this world, changing everything because of the note it's tetherless now. I think it's gonna be great. Kev, you recently picked up a Vive Pro. I actually thought you had gotten it a little early. You had hinted you got it yesterday, so hopefully you've had some time to just take it out of the box and look around at it. But so compare. I mean, and this is great that we can maybe compare the two because they are kind of the latest and greatest from the two kind of big VR companies. What do you think of the Vive Pro?
Yeah, I think it's one. I don't expect I mean, even by itself, it's expensive. I mean, especially opposite, and it's a beast. But to create enterprise level apps, it's big. But the biggest thing on it is, of course, they partner with Toby and have the eye tracking built into it. So that's the very curious I have, because I have a ton of research from Moment of, from what I couldn't do 2 years ago, which I could practically do now and build that into it. So that's probably the biggest and different thing. The practical thing, I think Oculus Quest wins. It's just awesome. Like what Jamie said in the example, it's just like, hey, you guys want to do VR? Like, if I did it right now, I'd have to take it. I'm like, oh, everyone watch out the wires right here. Here's the room set up, everything right here. Where Quest is just like, just go. And that, I love that because it's easy to adopt to it to people that are not VR friendly type of thing as well. So, but the Vive Pro, it's awesome. It's a beast, you know. And I have the Vive 1 developer package, which is pretty much the same thing. But you know, the difference isn't alone just in the hardware. It's just like there's headsets built in. I feel this one's a little more comfortable. But the bad thing is, yeah, it's like with the Quest come out, you're like, oh, it's a wired system. It's almost like it got outdated overnight. I'm just like, yeah, it's, you know, I could buy the whole wireless headset tracking or whatever and make this, you know, but that's obviously spending more money. It's just like, why don't you get the Oculus Quest? So you're getting a lot of people probably talking about that in the next couple months as well.
It's funny how much just going wireless has completely changed the game, and it's the Vive Pro is next gen, like it's serious business, like you said, enterprise level, and it's like, but why are there wires now?
Right.
Right? And this was like a week, and it's changed because of people are going to feel definitely spoiled, I guess. Where can people get in touch with you guys? Kev, how can people find out about Moment? And then Jamie, where can people go to continue to learn from you?
Well, one, I prefer telepathic powers. So if you have telepathic powers, just be me anytime. Yeah. That would be perfect. But yeah, you know, you could always reach me at, if you want to, my email, kchaja@gmail.com. It's my only email account. I refuse to have 50 email accounts like I did before. I funnel everything in there. You can ask me anything from moment questions all the way to, hey, Kevin, we want to give you $1 billion because you're amazing. Like whatever the spectrum is, go for it. But otherwise, if you want to check out Moment, I tell people the easiest thing is to go to their MergeCube page. They have this little thing called miniverse.io, which is like their little bunker full of apps that work on the MergeCube. And actually, Moment's the first one on there. It's free. You can download it. And actually, my contact info is all within the app itself. But I like to tell the Miniverse because I have a lot of friends that build apps as well. Their apps are in it as well. So I would say go through there. That's more appropriate. And yeah, enjoy.
Yeah, for me, you can reach me at arvrinedu.com. So arvrinedu.com. And both of us are on social channels. I think we respond fairly quickly. And you can always find us at #ARVRandEDU. On Twitter every Wednesday night on the Twitter chat. So that's a great community to jump into, and whether you're a lurker or active user.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Awesome.
The Twitter's the one to be at. Twitter's fun. I like that.
Kevin and Jamie, thanks so much for joining us. This has been awesome.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us here.
Thanks for listening to OnEducation. My name is Mike Washburn. My co-host is Glen Irvin. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Glen is at Irv Spanish on Twitter. I can be found on Twitter at Mr. Washburn. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/oneducationpod. We're also on Instagram at oneducationpod. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we'd be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or review in Apple Podcasts or on the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. This helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Classcraft, for supporting us. Check out classcraft.com/oneducation to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening. Stay awesome. See you soon.